You can see at the top and the bottom of that building, very intricate carved stone.
Tekne
And that's a
Turu'ndayız.
big part of this style. This style was
Chicago,
popular in the
Tekne
20s, so if
Turu'ndayız.
you're walking around Chicago today and you spot a building that
Kamera
looks like it might be from the
hafıza yetene
20s,
kadar
like that
çekeceğim.
one, it's got a lot of big Greek columns, it's got a lot of intricate stone carvings. Hey, that's the French style of Beaux-Arts, exactly. All right. To our left, let's check out the Tribune Tower here. It's in my favorite style of architecture called Neo-Gothic. Neo-Gothic was a style used to build cathedrals in the 16 to 1800s. These cathedrals wanted to feel light and airy, even though they were made of stone. How do you do that? Well, you cut out a bunch of your stonework to create these kind of almost filaments of design up there. And also you have very thin walls. When you do that, you don't have a lot of support. So those smaller towers with the arches that connect it to the main tower, those are called flying buttresses, and they're buttressing or supporting the main tower. So it can have all these big windows and stone cutouts and thin walls and still be supported. That's the Neo-Gothic style. All right, now we'll look off to our right. We'll see a bit more of a modern building built in the 1970s. This tall white building with these bold vertical lines kind of behind this brown brick building here. That really tall building over there is actually the 4th tallest building in Chicago. It's called the Aon Center. And when it was built, it was clad in beautiful white marble that was all imported from Italy. You guys can say wow if you want to.
Wow.
That's what people were saying. But then, after 10 years of Chicago's winters, that marble cracked and it began to fall off the building onto the buildings nearby. So at the cost of nearly $80 million, they replaced all the white marble with white North Carolina granite. Folks, you can't take marble for granted. And now you know. And now you know exactly why. All right, so off to our left, we have the Sheraton Hotel. The Sheraton Hotel, favored by President Barack Obama himself, has stayed here a few times. And this building has a ballroom that can seat 5,000 people at a time. One of the biggest ballrooms in Chicago, in the Sheraton Hotel. All right, now let's look to our right again. We're gonna look for a building with wavy white balconies. In the daytime, it's supposed to give the illusion of water trickling down the side of the building because of how the glass is arranged. That is aqua. Aqua meaning water. This building's super water inspired. The white balconies represent the white rocky outcroppings along the Great Lakes. It's designed by a girl from Chicago. Her name is Jeannie Gang, and she loves to build wavy buildings. Can you spot any more of her work? Yes, some of you have seen the wavy St. Regis Tower ahead of us to the right. The St. Regis Tower is the 3rd tallest tower in Chicago, but it's the tallest tower in the world, designed by a woman, and that's our girl from Chicago, Jeannie Gang. Pretty cool. Yeah, right? Go, Jeannie. Now this building is so tall that at its peak it deals with winds off the lake about 120 miles per hour, up to that much. So that's about the strength of an EF2 tornado. In order to keep this building from wobbling, if you look at the 83rd floor, it's gone. That was not because the wind blew it out. That was what they had to do to keep this building from wobbling. They took out the 83rd floor, creating a blow-through. A place the wind blows directly through the building instead of hitting the building full force, and that helps the building keep from wobbling. Okay, now if you're thinking, Jay, this river is awesome. I want to live here. Great news, we're passing some of the more cost-effective options on our left. Riverview 1 and Riverview 2. To get yourself an apartment in Riverview 1, it would cost you, for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, $350,000. And every month you'd have to pay homeowners fees of $950. So, you know, river's a little pricey, but that's because it's kind of nice these days. But that was not always the case, let me tell you. Back in the 1800s, we had a lot of factories along our river. And down south we had the Union Stockyards. And at the Union Stockyards we actually used to make animals into meat. Chicago, at one point, we were producing 80% of the meat in America. Think about that. That is a ton of meat. Now, when you produce 80% of the meat in America, one moment, this is Lakeshore Drive and it's kind of loud. When you produce 80% 90% of the meat in America. You have a lot of gross leftovers, stuff you can't just put in a hot dog. So we took that stuff, and we didn't know what to do with it, so we just tossed it in the river. And we were dumping a bunch of stuff from factories into the river as well. And that river used to flow towards the lake. And guess where Chicago got all its drinking water? From the lake. So you might notice Chicago had a big problem. People were dying from drinking contaminated water. They were dying of typhoid and cholera and terrible diseases like that. We said, what should we do? Should we stop dumping stuff in our river? Nah, we'll reverse the flow of the Chicago River. And we did. There's a place called the Continental Divide. On one side there's the Chicago River, then the land goes up and then it goes back down, and then there's the Des Plaines River. We dug a canal across the Continental Divide to negate that place where the land goes up then down, and no one wanted us to open that canal, surprisingly. Of course they knew we were about to make our problem someone else's problem, so because people were trying to stop us, we opened that canal in the dead of night. I kid you not, in January of 1900. We opened the canal and it works. Our river starts flowing through the canal into the Des Plaines River. Its current pulls our river down south. Now our river is flowing away from the lake, and all our nasty water is flowing south to St. Louis instead. So they sued us in court. But the court case was fought in Chicago, so guess who won? Chicago won, and then got sued again. This time we were being sued by Canada, Wisconsin, and Michigan, who said, Chicago, now that you're always taking your river water from the lake, you're going to drain all of Lake Michigan. And we would actually lose that court case. Now we needed a solution. Our solution is actually where we're going right now. This is called the Chicago Harbor Lock. We are about to enter into it. I'll ask you if you're downstairs, you're going to see that wall tantalizingly close, but please don't reach out and touch it, because if your hand gets in between this boat and that wall, your hand is not going to take the rest of this tour with us. So please keep your hands inside the boat. Now here we go into the lock. So the way that the lock works is it's a set of two doors that close normally between our river and our lake, and they separate them. But if a boat like ours needs to go onto the lake, they open the doors. And here we go through those doors now. Now once we get inside the lock, these doors here are going to close behind us. It's going to happen kind of slow, but once the doors are fully closed, a second set of doors in front of us is going to open. It's going to open kind of slowly as well, but about 250,000 gallons of water is going to flow from that lake into this lock and raise our boat up 4 feet, so we're at the height of Lake Michigan. Then a horn is going to blow, so be ready for that. And that means it's time for us to leave the lock. Once that horn blows, we're going to go out onto the lake and see what kind of buildings we can see from there. Here we are in the Chicago Lock. The Chicago Harbor Lock is 80 feet wide by 600 feet long, big enough to fit several large boats, and during the summer months we do just that. We fit a bunch of boats, as many as we can, in the lock so that we can get through. This lock opens about 25,000 times every year, and it'll open for anyone. Even if you're a kayaker and you're kayaking Lake Michigan at 3 a.m. for some reason, and you need to get back onto the river, the people in the guardhouse will open this lock for you. You don't have to pay anything. It is all taken out of the taxes of Chicagoans. The lock is free to use for anyone who wants to boat on Lake Michigan. Cool, right? Yeah. So here we are in the Chicago Lock. And while we're sitting here, I want to tell you a little story about something that combines my two major interests, architecture and crime. To our left behind us, way in the distance there, do you guys see a building with big X's on the outside and two white antennas on top? It's just off the back of the left side of our boat, like way out there. You guys see the building I'm talking about? It's the Hancock building. It's got these big X's on the outside. It's got these two white antennas on top. If you look at this wavy building just behind us to the left, it's a little bit further than that. The Hancock building, when it was built back at the beginning of the 70s, it was actually the tallest building in Chicago, and then it was surpassed by the Aon Center that had all that marble fall off of it, and then that building was surpassed by the tallest building now in Chicago, which I'll show you a little bit later. But back to the Hancock. It sits at the end of the Magnificent Mile. Has anyone gone shopping on the Mag Mile while we've been here? Kind of a nice spot. And that means that you traveled through the heart of a place called Streeterville. Streeterville is named after a criminal. So, George Streeter. He was a man who was a soldier in the Civil War, and in the 1860s he lost his job because the war ended. So he said, okay, now I'm gonna open a circus.
Şeyin açılmasını bekledik, kanalın açılmasını bekledik, o yüzden videoyu kestim. Buradan Michigan nehrine, yani nehrine diyorum, gölüne geçeceğiz biraz sonra. Michigan gölüne, şurası. Michigan gölüne bağlanacağız. Oradan tekrar kanalların içerisine gireceğiz. Burada bu Chicago Harbor Lock kullanılarak şey yapılıyormuş işte. Nehrin seviyesi arttırılıyormuş. Yani kanalın seviyesi arttırılıyormuş gerekirse. Onu anlattı bayağı. Binaları anlatıyor. Elimden geldiği kadar çekmeye devam ediyorum. Şu sağ tarafta da Michigan nehri var. Cruise'lar var. Şu anda da Michigan Gölü'ne çıktık. Çok büyük bir alan yani. Yani deniz gibi bir yer zaten Michigan Gölü de. Tura aynen devam ediyoruz.
That we have an awesome flag. It's right on the front of our boat, and it has 4 red stars on it. And those 4 stars represent 4 important historic events in Chicago that start with F. These are the 4 Fs. So first, in 1803, where the London Guarantee and Accident Building that we saw, the first building that we talked about, right where that was, there was a fort. It was called Fort Dearborn. It was the furthest western fort at that time of the colonial settlers, so that's what made people feel safe to move out to Illinois, specifically Chicago. So people start coming here. Eventually, in 1837, we're named a city, and then, of course, that city gets burned down. That's our second star on the flag. So we've had a fort, and now we have a fire. And then we rebuild, and in 1893, we have a fair. The first World's Fair in Chicago was a big to-do. At that fair was the first ever Ferris wheel, which was invented on purpose for the fair, and there was also the first ever brownie, which was invented on accident for the fair. Then also in 1933, we had a second World's Fair, and later I'll get to show you where that was. But for now, you guys have kind of a little base of knowledge. We had a fort, then a fire, then a fair, then another fair. And that's represented on that flag you can see in the middle of all those American flags there to your left. They're sitting right at the end of Navy Pier. Here at the end of Navy Pier, we have Festival Hall. Fun fact, if anyone is going to be here for the weekend, Chicago is doing what's called Chicago Open House. And many of these buildings, including Festival Hall to our left, will be open and giving free tours. So that's the 19th and 20th if you're going to be in town. All right, Navy Pier has a big Ferris wheel at the end of it. That Ferris wheel is built to commemorate an even bigger Ferris wheel, the first ever Ferris wheel. At the 1893 World's Fair, the first ever Ferris wheel was almost twice as tall as the Ferris wheel there at Navy Pier, and every car held not 2 and not 4 people, but 60 people per car. And every car had a bar and a bartender. Ferris wheels just ain't the same no more. All right, let's keep looking left. We're gonna spot a bunch of trees. These trees are part of Milton J. Olive Park. Now, Milton J. Olive He was a young African-American man, and he was in the Vietnam War. And at one point, a grenade was thrown at his platoon, and he selflessly dove on top of it, thinking quickly. He sacrificed his life to save his entire platoon. And in his memory, he was the youngest African-American to ever receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. And also, he had this park named after him in his memory. So we've got Milton J. Olive Park here, and just beyond it, we have the biggest water treatment plant in North America. I know it doesn't look that big from out here, but it's actually like an iceberg. It extends underground, and it pumps water through 2-mile-long tunnels that run just beneath us and all the way out to buildings like that way out there on your right. When Chicago was polluting its lake, we had a bunch of things that we tried to get ourselves clean drinking water, and one of the first things that we said was, what if we took water not from directly at the mouth of the river where we're polluting our lake? What if we went 2 miles out in the lake and we started digging a tunnel to the main part of Chicago? We could pump water from way out in the lake all the way to the main part of Chicago. So that was one of our first attempts to get clean water, and that building out there is called a water crib. It still is where we intake water. That one out there, since it's painted with red and white stripes, fun fact, is affectionately known as the KFC crib, because it looks like a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And that pumps water right to the water treatment plant. And then we treat the water with chemicals to kill off bacteria, and then it is pumped out to the Chicagoans of Chicago, like me. And we drink it, and it's pretty good. But most of us also use Brita water filters, you know. Who doesn't these days, am I right? Okay, let's see what else we have here to talk about. Well, we know a little bit about Streeterville. Let's look for one of my favorite buildings to talk about here. So let's follow Milton J. Olive Park all the way to where it would connect to the land. There's kind of a tan building there with a bunch of X's. Do you guys see that one? Okay. We're gonna look to the right of that building. There's a building with a point on the top and 4 little points around it. It's kind of a triangular top. If you shield your eyes from the sun, you can see that the top of that building is painted blue. That building is the American Furniture Mart, and when it was built, it was the biggest building in the world. Yeah, pretty crazy. And that is more of the building. It extends right towards the lake. So it is a pretty big building, but if you look at it now, it's kind of dwarfed by the rest of our city, right? Back in the 1920s, that was the biggest building in the entire world. And it used to sell furniture, but now it's offices. Okay, let's look for another fun building. Biggest in square footage. Great question. Okay, let's go back to the Hancock building, right in Streeterville, which we know all about now. At the base of the Hancock building, right next to the lake, do you see these 2 kind of rectangles? One looks like it's sideways, one looks like it's facing us. Those are buildings by the very famous architect, Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe, he was kind of an avant-garde guy back in the 1930s. He was building buildings unlike anything Chicagoans had really seen before. They looked like big black boxes. Might not sound that revolutionary, but this was a time when we were in the Beaux-Arts style, right? We have all these stone buildings. And men like Mies van der Rohe said, why should we hide the internal structure of our buildings with stone? We should express that structure. Kind of a catch-all term for buildings that express their structure is structural expressionism. This is a type of structural expressionism. It's called the international style, and it mostly looks like big black boxes, which is how it got its nickname, black box modernism. So back to Mies van der Rohe, he was very specific about how he built his buildings. For any former or current art students on this boat, he was all about the golden rectangle, which is essentially a ratio with which he used to build his windows so that they looked really nice. And in fact, he was so kind of obsessive about what his windows looked like that he had a rule made. If you live in one of those Mies van der Rohe buildings, you can't put up curtains on your windows. In fact, you can't put any fun window coverings up. You have to have a white or off-white pull-down blind. That is a rule if you live in a Mies van der Rohe building. So just keep that in mind if you ever want to live in one of his buildings. If you have fun window coverings, you're going to have to give those up. Now let's look to our left again. Why not? We'll see the break wall. This wall that runs alongside us here to the left, its job is to break big waves that would otherwise come into this area and hit Navy Pier. You see, Chicago, before we had all this car traffic, our primary form of traffic was boats. Chicago, some people don't think of it as a coastal city, but actually it really functioned as one. You could get here from New York by boat. In fact, you go down the Erie Canal, across the chain of Great Lakes, and then you come right here to Navy Pier probably and drop off whatever you were carrying. And because of all of that, Navy Pier was one of our biggest kind of shipping receiving spots, and it was constantly being buffeted by waves, and the waves were smashing the boats against the pier. So we tried a couple different things to break those waves, but the break wall is what eventually solved this problem for us. It was designed by the Army Corps of Engineers, the same people who designed our harbor lock that we went through earlier. And at the very end of this part of the break wall, you'll notice a little lighthouse. That's the Chicago Harbor Lights. Remember the 1893 World's Fair I've been telling you about? One of the biggest attractions at that fair was the lens that would eventually go on top of this lighthouse. The lens could project a light far out into the lake, and people were impressed.
Arkadaşlar videoyu burada bitiriyorum artık. Zaten kameranın da pili bitmek üzere. Olduğu kadarıyla herkese selamlar. Görüşmek üzere. Ufak bir Chicago turu oldu. Bay bay.